All righty. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone had a good day. My name is Chantaya King. I'm one of the academic advisors in the Office of Student Affairs for Social Work. And tonight, this is our info session for specializations. Students have the opportunity to choose clinical or MAP, and this is some time to spend with faculty, discuss the differences between and the benefits and career paths for math and clinical. So we're going to get started, but first I'll have the faculty introduce themselves and then we'll start with math. Christine, why don't you get us started?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Morales. I am Assistant Dean of Lecture Development at the School of Social Work, but I'm also an Assistant Professor of Teaching, and I'm here to chat with you about management and policy. I'm going to popcorn it over then to Dr. Nepomniachtchi.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, everyone. So happy to see you all here. I'm Lena Nepomniachtchi, very long last name. Please call me Lena if you need to call me and say anything. I am a professor here. I've been here for 16, 17 years. I can't even do the math anymore. And I am one of the macro practice faculty as well. So I teach policy and other stuff. And I'm here also to talk to you about the management and policy specialization. Thanks. And I will pop it to Dr. Hubbard.
Thank you. So, my name is Dr. Tawanda Hubbard. I am an associate professor of professional practice. I'm on the clinical side of the house. I am also a licensed clinical social worker. I have a small private practice, but I also participate in a lot of different coalitions and committees. And I am a past president of NASW New Jersey. And so, I'm going to pop it over to Dr. McCoy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy McCoy. I am an associate professor at the School of Social Work for 21 years now, which is kind of hard to believe. I'm also the associate director of doctoral programs, and I'm on the clinical side, have a small clinical practice, as well as the things that I do with Rutgers and outside of Rutgers. So we're looking forward to telling you more about clinical after our colleagues tell you more about MAP.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's start with MAP. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand as well, and we'll get those questions answered. But let's turn it over to MAP.
Christine, go ahead. Take it.
Yeah, so I don't mind warming things up. I like to share a little bit of my background. So I went to a university that was not Rutgers, unfortunately, but I used to do admissions and recruitment, and I love Rutgers. Rutgers just makes a lot of sense, especially for New Jersey natives, but also folks who wish to reside in New Jersey. But even far beyond that, we have like global extensions. So, okay, not a sales pitch, you're already with Rutgers, right? But what I wanted to share is that when I was going into my MSW program, like I was like, I'm going to be clinical. I just knew it, right? And then I started taking all these classes, and the professors that I vibed with, the professors that I felt like understood and I connected with were all the macro professionals. And so they were teaching me about like training and consultant. In fact, when I was an MSW student, I co-facilitated a training for 500 DCF workers. And I remember being like terrified, but it was so exciting. And that was an example. My professor was like, this is macro social work. But I think what's important is before we move on, social work skills are social work skills, right? And so even like, across the pond, right? There's no distinction between micro and macro. Social work skills of creating rapport, establishing relationships, that's beneficial whether you're in a clinical setting or if you're out there doing advocacy work or trying to change policy. The best way to do that is with building relationships, right? And speaking with some trauma awareness, right? Or trauma sensitivity. So those are just some kind of examples. So I recognize that when we talk to you tonight, it's going to be a little bifurcated, But you can have it all. I just want to be clear. You can have it all. And I know when I was doing admissions, I know students would stress out. Like, which one do I pick? And, I want to tell you, like, there's no wrong answer. Okay. You can just cater your education to what interests you now. And I don't know if you all are aware, Rutgers University is the largest continuing education institution-based continuing education provider. And so if you did management and policy, for example, but now you're 10 years in the field and you want to hone in your clinical expertise, there's CEs for that, and vice versa, right? So management and policy, that ranges everywhere from nonprofit work, right? Nonprofit management. And actually, I am under the impression that a good percentage of you, after a year after graduating, you will be asked to take on a management or leadership position, whether it's from case manager to supervisor of case managers. So information that you learn at MAP through the MAP program can be helpful for you. Side note, I'm selling MAP and I have my LCSW. Okay, just something to think about, right? I can go on, but I don't want to like dominate. So Len, I didn't know we can have back and forth. Anything I should add? Anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, thanks, Christine. That's great. And you hit the most important things, right? That social work is everything, right? We are selling our specialization because that's why we're here, right? That's what we're doing today because you have to select, unfortunately, and yet let me say fortunately, right? Because it's great that you can hone in on the one thing that you're really interested in right now. But of course, keeping in mind that you might change how you feel, right, in 5 years or 3 years or whatever. And I also want to make the kind of the case that the macro specialization management policy is pretty unique to Rutgers. There, and actually on the East Coast, there are very few such programs. There's only maybe a handful across the country. So that is something I think that is important to think about when you think about being here. I just want to say a couple more things. So I was I was actually an alum from here, from Rutgers. I graduated in God knows 1991. I'm sorry, that really tells you how old I am. Very old. But I was also in the clinical track and I started taking classes, and very early on, I realized that that was not for me because I didn't feel that that felt good to me. So I changed to the macro practice specialization, and then I got a field placement, actually, sorry, a practicum placement in an alternative high school, which seemed working with kids, right, one-on-one, but also building a program. So we were building a program from the ground up. So again, like this mix, right, of totally kind of one-on-one individual stuff, but also completely together with policy, with building programs, with program coordination, advocacy, and moving, the ability to get these kids what they needed. So one of the things that, so I don't know if anyone was at orientation, probably many of you were at our orientation. Marla Blunt Carter, who's the other kind of faculty liaison of the MAP specialization, she used this analogy that I think was really great about, there's people who have fallen into the water, right, into the river. And this is obviously incredibly simplistic, right? But just it helps to think about this way, right? So people who are doing clinical work are pulling the people out of the water and helping them. Do we need those people? Of course we do, right? Without that, people would be dying and drowning, right? Okay. But the MAP, people who are doing more macro work are trying to understand, why the heck are these people in the water? Why did they fall off that bridge? What was wrong with that bridge? Why is it that bridge that fell, but not that bridge down the road where different kinds of people live, right? Like, why are these things happening in our society? And then how do we actually fix the big picture, right? And I guess that's a very quick analogy. And of course, it's simplistic, but just a way to think about it. If you want to make change on a big community level, at the organization level, at the policy level, that's where macro skills get you. And just I want to give a couple of job description, not descriptions, titles, because I think people don't know what this could be, right? So things like, where am I? Program coordinator, policy analyst, policy researcher, coordinator, quality improvement coordinator, grant writer, community liaison, marketing and communications director, fundraiser, advocate, community organizer, data analyst. So it brings together administration, leadership, running things, running programs, and then advocacy at the community level, and then policy at the research and policy advocacy level. So I'll stop there. We can talk more. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, and Dr. Hubbard graciously asked me to go first for clinical, and so I'll beat Lena. I graduated in 1985 with my MSW, and even before that, obviously, with my undergrad. And I did that because I was really determined to follow somebody whose path I saw, who was at that point called a medical social worker. And we now call those folks health social workers. But those people are clinical social workers too. So I'm going to share a little bit about what the clinical specialization looks like at Rutgers, because there are a lot of places that kind of prepare you to be doing what people think of as clinical, like doing kind of therapy stuff. But we have a much broader view at Rutgers. And so our group, actually, the clinical specialization, developed a statement. So I'll read that at you, which is not very good teaching, but I'm going to just share it with you and then go back to a couple of little things. So the Rutgers School of Social Work offers a rigorous and integrative clinical program that prepares students to be reflective practitioners who can navigate professional life at all levels of practice. Our clinical program embraces social justice and equity tenets, is grounded in a person and environment perspective, and focuses on clients' strengths in order to deliver effective and inclusive direct social work services. Students gain in-depth, culturally informed, evidence-based, comprehensive clinical skills in engagement, assessment, intervention, and evaluation to enhance the well-being of individuals, families, and groups, enabling them to address complex client needs across the lifespan in diverse settings. That's a lot, right? That's really big. And I would agree with Lena and Marla's example. In many ways, the folks at the clinical level are trying to help at most often at that micro kind of couple family level. Our coursework is geared that direction. And yet we really believe strongly that we can't be clinical people in social work without connecting with our macro peers. That means that we're downstream and we're saying, hey, you policy people up there, hey, these are the kind of people we're seeing. Hey, can you do something about what's coming in at the top? and they're reaching out to us too. And so I think that it's really important to know that social work can't happen without both of those things. And so we really take that seriously on the clinical side. I'm going to let Dr. Hubbard talk a little bit more, but I also just want to put a little stamp on it's not all sitting in an office. I do have a private practice now, but I was in hospitals, I was in home care, I was running around communities with the visiting nurses, the public health departments, and that was actually the hardest clinical work I did. You can sit in an office and talk to people and that kind of thing, but being out trying to build those skills really quickly and build the rapport really quickly, that really develops your clinical skills. And so I strongly urge people to know that they're going to get really solid clinical skills in our program, but also know that it's, some of the places that you don't expect are some of the places you develop those skills best. And I think Dr. Hubbard will fill in around what those courses do and other kinds of things.
Well, I want to give a little bit about my background. So I am a two-time alum from the Rutgers School of Social Work. So I got my MSW in 2005. My undergrad is in business administration management. So I was a project manager in the finance industry before I came into social work. And so got my master's, which so many people said to me, makes sense, Tawanda, it makes sense because in my business world, people used to come and sit at the chair next to my cubicle and tell me all their life struggles. And so I was a really good listener. So when I went into social work, so many people was like, just makes a lot of sense. In 2017, I got my DSW, my first doctorate from Rutgers School of Social Work, which both served me so well. And like I mentioned before, I'm an LCSW, and I want to say something about clinical social work. So clinical social work is pretty broad, right? And so social workers are in just about every industry that exists. The master's is a mobile degree. It has immense value. And when you think about clinical social workers, we are in agencies, we are in schools. Clinical social workers do psychotherapy, but you have clinical social workers who are also administrators and leaders. You have clinical social workers who are educators, right? And when you think about the statement that Dr. McCoy read to you, and it really anchored clinical social work here in social justice and equity. I always like to talk about the Rutgers difference, right? And so clinical social work has a difference here. And when she mentioned person and environment, we don't just talk about how the problems are just located in an individual. We look to understand the person and environment. So there are problems that individuals and families have within their community, with society at large, how policies can affect their everyday life. So we get into that and we talk about liberatory consciousness framework. Have you guys heard about liberatory consciousness framework yet? That's me doing a quiz. Let me see. All right. Okay. Thank you. And so with clinical social work, that is one of our frameworks that we definitely bring to the table so that you can see that broader picture and how the connections work. So as a clinical social worker, you're not a macro practitioner, but you do have a macro focus in certain elements in the work that you do because that's the social work difference, that social justice, that environmental economic justice that we bring to the table. It's our mission as social workers. And I think it's so important that you know that, how broad that is, even though we'll be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy and interpersonal practice, and we'll be talking about family systems and group therapy. We also bring in that broader picture about the environment, and we do touch on how there are certain programs and policies in an organization, the shrinking of funding and resources, and the access, and how that affects the accessibility of behavioral health care and the work that you can do. So we connect and we bring some of that in to the conversation space, but we do partner, like Dr. McCoy said, with our macro practitioners and educators on the other side of the house because they do so much more in that arena. But we need both an integrated approach, and we try to bring that to you. But it's really, where is your heart at and what resonates with you? And I would say the same thing that Lena said, that you, if you want to take clinical courses and do the clinical specialization track, we would love to have you. Love, 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 love. And also, if you had a heart for macro, there are a lot of really good continuing education um, workshops and webinars that you can take to enhance both. I shared with you that I used to be the a former president of NASW New Jersey. That's me engaging in policy work, community work, and my heart is with clinical. But I know that it's clinical and macro. You really, they're not really separate. That's an imaginary divide between. But it's, what do you lean most to and what do you resonate with, and how can you bring the two together because they're interconnected. All right. You want to open it up to them, or what do we want to do, everyone?
Can I jump in and answer a couple of questions that came up online just
Yes,
quickly?
that's what I was getting ready to say. There's a
Okay,
couple
great. I
comments
did
in the chat.
already answer, but I just want to
In
say,
the
so
chat box?
all of our certificate programs are open to both specializations. The
Mhm.
only one that is not is the ACT specialization, sorry, the ACT certificate, which is addictions counseling training. And that is only for clinical folks. So that those, in no way do those limit your specialization choice. Okay.
Mhm. Was there another question in the chat?
I think that was, does this apply even to the dual degree programs? Yes, that applies as well.
Okay.
There was a question about wanting to specialize in clinical, but then, maximizing this
Yes.
skills in management and policy. This is where I would say work closely with your academic advisor. I would never want to lead you astray, but it's my
Mhm.
understanding that even as like a clinical specialization, you can still take a management and policy elective.
Yes.
Similarly, even if your practicum is clinically based, if you
Mhm.
talk to your liaison during the placement process and let them know that there is some interest, they might be able to place you in an organization or at a location where there is potentially a management and policy project that you can work on as well. So it's not
Mhm.
as, isolated and siloed as, one would imagine.
Yeah, really good placement for that is on campus, our violence prevention and victims assistance. They have a nice integration of the clinical and the macro that you can do and the outreach. Hmm.
S-
Before we take them other questions, I'm going to share my screen
Okay.
quickly, um, just to point out one thing. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, now we can.
Okay.
Can you make it a
So,
little bigger
yes, let me see.
at the bottom?
Um,
The bar, you see the bar right
yeah.
there? Or you can hit the plus sign.
Mm,
Yep.
better?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I wanted to share with this. This is the back of the second page of your curriculum at a glance. So when you are getting ready to make the decision and you decide clinical and MAP, this is your trajectory of what classes you'll take. So if you're a clinical student, you'll go into clinical 1 and 2, fall and spring. And if a MAP, management and policy and theory, and then program is a strategic planning. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have your advanced distribution requirements for both clinical and MAP. So that question about maximizing, there is some way where you can take an elective from either or. It just depends on, but I highly recommend, as from an advisor perspective, talk to your advisor about that and what that could look like. Because some students may be on certificates, and your certificate may have some certain electives and requirements you need to take. So there's ways you can do it, but it definitely requires a one-on-one conversation. And you can find that in the back of, it's on the second page of your curriculum at a glance, where it breaks down MAP and policy courses and for that as well. So just wanted to point that out. I see some hands. Um, Jotin, am I saying your name right?
Yes, it's Jyotin actually.
Okay, Jilton, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for this session. More of a question for Christine and Lena. On the map side, I'm very interested in map because my background is I have an MBA in finance executive programs from NYU, and I come from banking, pharma, and biotechs and venture capital. And I'm in my first semester of the MSW standard regular program. The question I have is I understand I'm also doing my practicum at RWJ in the crisis center right now on the clinical side. Uh, I understand that hospitals like RWJ and pharmaceuticals hire people with MAP background in what's called patient advocacy. Can you talk about that in terms of job prospects?
Yeah, so I am familiar with patient advocacy work. And so with that type of work, it's related to visiting the different patients depending on the different hospitals. I really can't say I know that you're asking for like the prospects. I know that it is a position that they hire for, but I'm not sure like how many openings there are right now or how much in demand it is. But that patient advocacy that you're envisioning that happens in a hospital, there's also like similar or parallel positions that are available through insurance companies as well. So I just want you to recognize that you can think of it more expansively in those different healthcare settings. And also in for-profit organizations, particularly with residential housing and those kinds of things. But essentially, there, I know that there is employment for it. I don't know if that's answering your question, Jotin.
Yes, it does. I just did an AI search on it, and it said pharmas hire a lot of map people in this area. So thank you very much for that. There are
Yeah.
other prospects too. Yeah. And I have to get a map placement next year because my supervisor at RWJ said that if you want to do map, then clinical probably is not the area. But even RWJ hires map people. So I'll reach out to them on the patient advocacy and see if there's any prospects there for next year.
So actually, and John, I'm glad you're bringing this up. We
It's
have
it's it's Jotun.
Oh,
Sorry.
Jotun.
Yes.
I apologize, Jotun. Just so you know, I named my children and I get their names wrong all the time, right? So Jotun, I work closely with the program coordinator who does placements for management and policy. And so we do have somebody specifically assigned to that. And so what happens is there's like one-on-one meetings, and similar to your first placement, you would fill out the form, say what your interests are, and she works closely with each student to try to get the best possible match that lines up with student interest as it relates to management and policy.
Right. And who is that? Who is that person?
So it's Marianne Bischoff. And
Marianne
so,
Bishop. I think I got an email from her, I believe.
yeah, so especially once you declare it, then she'll be notified of your information and
Right. I think
she'll
she
reach out.
said in December we have to make the decision, and then she said she will probably be the map placement person. Okay, good. So I'll speak to both of all three of you, Lena, you, and Marianne, whenever the time is appropriate. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. While we are discussing, I see a couple questions in the chat about when you make the decision. So it depends, right? So if you're a traditional student and you are get ready to start thinking about your placement, your second year placement, you'll make that decision in December. For online students, it's a little bit different, but you are eligible in the same route, but it's usually 2 semesters before you are going into that planning of your specialization year. So when you are eligible, Student Affairs will send you an email, and there is an option to select clinical or MAP. Once you make that decision and we get our responses back, then on your transcript, you'll see a coding on there that allows you, when it's time to register for the following fall, to register for your clinical or MAP courses. If you are not sure directly, you can also reach out to the advisors. There are more information about that, but Student Affairs will send you a link when you are eligible for that. So for any students that are here, I know there's some folks that are starting the program in January or this coming fall. If you're a generalist student in those first 2 semesters, you won't be eligible until right before you're planning going into your specialization year. There was a question in a chat about what some career paths that students have taken from MAP after graduation.
Yeah, I have a couple of things here. So let me just also give you some, these are practicum places, but these are also the places where people are getting jobs, just kind of throwing out some agency names so you kind of get a sense of where people are. So the Anti-Poverty Network, which is now called Citizen Action, New Jersey Kids Count, which puts together data on all sorts of things that are happening with kids in New Jersey. New Jersey Policy Perspectives, which we have a couple of people there. We have someone working there and a couple of field placement people. The New Jersey State Legislature, we always have somebody who is working with one of the legislators, either with an individual or within the legislature itself, because they hire people with exactly the skills that we are teaching our students here. The Latino Action Network, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, United Way, Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey, the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence, the Juvenile Justice Commission, Hispanic Family Center of Southern New Jersey. I'm just throwing out a few things. And in terms of kinds of the types of positions, so let me just say a couple other ones. So Director of Operations, the Training Coordinator, Outreach Coordinator, Program Quality Analyst. So these might kind of ring some bells for you of things that the kinds of things that people are doing. Director of Fundraising and Special Events, Policy Analyst, Program Coordinator, Assistant Director of Organizational Effectiveness. So, right, these are like things that kind of might ring a bell or might make you think about what's going on out there. And when we work with our MAP students, we give them search terms for looking for jobs. Because I think, if you look at social worker, if you put social work in a job search, you're going to get clinical, right? That is all you're going to get, because that is kind of what people understand social work to be. The kinds of jobs that the kind of search terms that we tell our students to look for are things like outreach coordinator, program coordinator, administrator, project coordinator, manager, communications, community outreach, community relations, community engagement, community organizing, community advocate, policy analyst, policy advocate, researcher, and then politics. We have a whole political social work thing. Marla Blunt Carter, one of our faculty, is starting it's probably going to be a certificate also. So we're heading towards that. Will be absolutely a MAP focused certificate for people who are interested in political social work. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean you're running for something. It certainly can be, but it's also working in the political space, doing advocacy, doing outreach in the community for legislators. Social workers are the most important people that can get information about their communities to policymakers, right? So, okay, I hope that was helpful, but I can answer more questions.
Are you interested in the clinical jobs, or do you already have an idea of the clinical jobs? Let me hear from you guys.
I'm just going to pop in here. I am interested in clinical jobs. I'm coming at this. I'm older than all of you. I graduated before all of you. So I'm coming at this, I'm 63. And so trying and yet I have a background where I have a child on the spectrum. I've had to encounter a lot of legislation issues. And in fact, I moved from California to New Jersey because of my child. Um, but to say I want to be able to access that sort of map end of things because I want to be able to
Advocate.
policy, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I think it makes more sense for me to take a clinical route at my age, what I can do in terms of building for a career. Can you guys, I mean, is it possible to do that clinical route and still access those sort of map opportunities?
Yep, you can take electives, right? As long as it depends on if you go like Chantaya said, if there's a certain certificate that you get interested in, you have to definitely speak to your advisor to make sure that you're covering all the electives connected to the certificate that's required. But yeah, there's an option for you to definitely do the MAP electives, right? I think that's important for you to be able to look at, but talk to your advisor to know exactly what that would look like for you,
Well,
right? The
what,
path for you to take.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. One of the
No.
things I actually thought I was coming in here to hear about today, and I realize now what I'm here for, but was those specialties.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came, it's getting into social work. It's a little bit like inventing the wheel. Like I don't know. I kept having to try to understand all the terminology about what was what. And one of the things was all those specialties were offered, and I thought, oh, I have to go down a specialty route.
Mm-mm.
And I'm coming to this conclusion that like I don't want a specialty route. I want to see it. I want to know it all. And I think
Mm-hmm.
actually, especially route, I was wondering, do any of you guys know, does it even have a benefit ultimately to
What's
do?
a benefit?
Do you
I
mean
mean,
a
that's
certificate? Katarina, am I saying your
Yeah.
name right?
yes, yes,
I think
yes,
you
you
meant the
are. And
certificate programs. Does that
yes,
sound right? Okay.
yes.
Yeah. You don't have to take it. You don't have to get
Yeah.
a certificate in the program. Not at all. You don't have to.
Seems like if I just stay in the general and go clinical route, then I can probably get more out of the map end of things. Like
Okay.
I leave myself
You
more room.
can.
I don't know if I'm right, but that's kind of what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
I think that's how you can, right? Again, I always encourage everyone to talk to your advisor, but if you're, and I say to students, certificates are not required. Sometimes students come into the program and know exactly what they want to do, and that's fine. But there are others, I always say you want to get a little bit of everything. right? And that's what this degree does, right? And you can do that. You can stay that way and you can be a clinical specialization, but also take some electives in math.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been really awesome.
Sounds good.
And I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
respond to that as well, because there are a couple of questions in the chat that are similar. Like, the neat thing about social work is it gives you so many opportunities, just so broad. And so I know it feels, and it is a big decision to make a decision for clinical or MAP here in the second year. We really are trying to, we are trying to make sure that everybody is able to get what they want and where their passion is, but it won't keep you from doing other kinds of things. So truly, you'll be able to get a broad education, a true social work education, regardless of which specialization you pick. You can always fill in with electives, continuing education. We all learn after our MSWs. It would be really
Yes.
sad if we didn't. And Katayun, I actually am older than you. So,
Yes.
so you don't have to feel like you're the oldest in the room.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
regardless, I do think that there are, I don't think that we have to offer these specializations because we're such a large program and there need to be ways to meet people where they are, but you can
Mm-hmm.
always fill in, you can always cross over, and social work really lets you do all of those
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I want to chime in. I think it's really important that you have to sit with yourself a little bit and you have to spend some time thinking about, even in the courses that you have been taking thus far, what's resonating with you? Where you're kind of leaning to, what feels right for you now? And even as you heard with Christina, she has her LCSW and the work that she has done and, and where she shared she's at now. And so, it doesn't mean that what you choose now, this is it. I think we're always becoming and you'll always discover more. And so you can spend time with that, but just sit right now with yourself and just kind of check in and say, what's resonating? Where am I at? And know that even as you grow, if you develop a greater interest in macro or you develop a greater interest in clinical down the line later, there will still be opportunities for you. Just check in with yourself now so what feels right for you and what you vision for yourself. That's what's really important. Just spending some time and even if you got to pull out that paper, put a column down and do pros and cons, right? Just, spend some time reflecting there.
That's great advice. I was also going to jump in and say, you're most of you, I assume all of you are in a generalist field place, darn it, practicum placement, sorry, right now, right? So think about what are you doing there? What are the things that make you really excited and give you happiness, right? And what are the things that you're like, I wish I could do less of that. And that could also, right, be a way for you to think about what are the things I'm really enjoying and want to do more of, and what are the things I might not be wanting to do more of, right? So that's another way to think about it. Your oh God darn it, your sorry, your practicum placement is so important, right? Because that's your first kind of exposure to what you're doing. Obviously, many of you are already working as well in the social work field, so I don't want to say that's your first thing, but that's kind of very education focused, right? That's where you're getting kind of the pieces that you need, and so that's a good place to think about it also.
Awesome. There is a question in the chat, which I find that students ask me often, is that what is it like to pursue licensure as a MAP focused student?
Christine, do you want to take that?
Yes, I'll try. It's been a few decades. But so from what I recall, overall, what the school teaches you gives you the foundation that you need. So you'll have that content. And so, with the licensure process, I don't want to get too into the weeds. I think this is the details that you want, though. With the licensure process, you can take that LSW exam in your last semester of your MSW program. So you could take it then or anytime after, right? And so when you're applying to do that, I would recommend studying. I would recommend taking like practice tests. So you already have that foundational knowledge, and then you would just study further. And what's helpful is, for me at least, I actually took it it's quite some time after my MSW, and I got practical experience. I was in the field, and I was doing work, like clinical work. And then I realized, I was like, oh, actually, it was my HR person. I'll tell you, my HR person said, Christine, do you know that you'll get more money if you have an LSW? I was like, say no more. So I signed up to take the exam. And then I also started the application. So then you have to accrue hours under a licensed supervisor. And then you take another test for your LCSW. But essentially, that information that you get in the journalist year, it's all the information that you'll need.
I want to add a little bit to that. So there are specific number of classes that you have to take in order while you're at Rutgers or later, in order to take the LCSW exam whenever you're ready, right? You need, I don't remember, is it 3,000 hours or something post masters, right? That you need, as Christine was saying, under a supervisor. So that's something you're going to do, right? You're going to
Yeah.
work on. Sorry.
Hey, can I add, Lena? So it's the 3,000 hours, and what's really important is out of the 3,000 hours, 1,920 must be face to face, and half of that 1,920 has to be psychotherapeutic. So you have to be doing therapy. And so that is something key on the road to obtaining the LCSW as well as passing the exam. So you have to do 960 hours doing psychotherapeutic counseling.
Let
Thank
me
you.
just add that that's in New Jersey. There are other states
Yep,
that don't interpret
that
it
might require
quite
it
so
differently.
closely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the classes, when you leave Rutgers, if you think that you might want to go for your LCSW down the road and you choose the MAP specialization, you just have to work with your advisor to make sure that your electives, you are taking the one, I think you need one extra, yes,
Just one.
one extra class that you can take as an elective that will get you what you need. You can always, of course, come back as part of continuing education and take that class. But if you want to leave here ready, then you just have to make sure you work with your advisor to make sure you can take that elective. So the point is that the MAP specialization does not in any way lock you out, absolutely not, of taking the LCSW later. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a hand raised. And yep, there you go. I think, are you still muted? We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. You're not muted, it looks like, but we can't hear.
Yeah,
Second. Can you
there
hear
it
me
is.
now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have two questions. The first is because I missed the first 30 minutes. So do I need to go after someone to declare my specialization, or someone's going to reach out to me? And then my
Nope.
second question is, in terms of the global social work program, do you guys still have that? And how does that affect like the clinical route and my electives?
I'll answer the first one. When you are eligible to declare your specialization, Student Affairs will send you an email, and all you have to do is use the drop down to select MAP or clinical. That's it.
With
And
regards to
in regards to the
global,
global, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe we can put our heads together to get the answer. I'm under the impression that it does require, that's more of a, what is the term?
The study abroad
Area
trip.
area
Yeah, thank
emphasis.
you. Yes, area.
Yeah.
That's an area of emphasis, and so what that
Mm-hmm.
means is that you have to take at least three related classes. So it might be international social work. It
Mm-hmm.
might be a study abroad trip. It might be two study abroad trips. This is again, I think, an underlying message we've been saying, and I'm happy to say it again. Talk to your advisor. Right.
Yes.
I should probably say it louder rather than whisper. Talk to your advisor, make sure that you're on the right track. But you would take three classes that are related to global social work, if that's the area of emphasis you want to do. And then you would also talk to your practicum liaison that your practicum placement is somewhat related. So it might not necessarily be you doing your practicum, in Asia, but it might be working with refugees in New Jersey, for example, right? So yeah, does that answer your question around global?
That helps a lot But actually, I don't know who my advisor is. Does that happen after you declare specialization?
When
Or
are you a new student?
I'm in my third semester, fourth semester. So second year of the 3-year program.
Online?
Online.
What's it? Email student affairs
Okay,
to get
cool,
connected with your advisor.
cool. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions?
And I wanted just to jump in and say, let's say you really are interested in global social work, right? You can absolutely think about how that plays out in the clinical space and how that works out in the macro space, right? You can imagine, as Christine, I think, said, right? You could be working in a refugee resettlement program, right? And working one-on-one with people who are affected by everything that's going on. Or you could be working in exactly that same agency, but thinking about how do we get policy information out to the people that are part of our agency? How do we advocate in the community to help protect those folks? Or you could be working at the UN, right? And actually processing how all these policies are affected, doing research on who is being affected by various things, right? So you can see, and every area of emphasis you might be interested in, every certificate program, we can come up with ways that that can play out in clinical and in macro, right? And that's again the beauty of social work. We are doing everything.
Yeah, it is because in all these agencies and spaces that Lena has shared, you'll have clinical social workers in those spaces too, doing individual, doing group work, doing family work. You'll also have clinical social workers who are doing crises intervention, disaster type of relief work. As well as you'll have clinical supervisors and leaders there, administrators, but it's a nice combination, and I really do love the way everyone is talking about it here, the integration of the micro and the macro, because you can see in some agencies sometimes macro social workers and clinical social workers working side by side together in that agency to meet the needs of the persons in the community and client status that they are working with. So it's really good.
Can I say one other thing? Students who decide to go with the management policy specialization, once you graduate, you are automatically enrolled in the network for social work management. It's like a certificate that you get kind of automatically. And everyone is eligible for it. It's an international organization focused on advancing social work management and leadership. So that's kind of a little bonus.
Hmm. That's nice. They get that automatically. Yeah, you got to pay for the clinical the Clinical Social Work Association and also to NASW, but NASW holds all social workers, right? Macro, micro, international. We do have our International Federation of Social Workers too. Um, and then we have a lot of other like the National Association of Black Social Workers, right? And so we have a lot of different kind of specialty social work or associations as well.
Thank you.
Is
Any other questions?
somebody said, can they say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Let's see that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is D'Angela Guzman, and I am the representative for the intensive weekend program. And one thing that has helped my cohort, we're Mace Landing 15, is networking. So, like with all the other students within your cohort, like create group chats or just network and like share each other's experiences. Like, there's a lot of well, a lot of students in my cohort that already have placement in a map setting, or like, for example, myself in a clinical setting. And then another recommendation that I do give is interviewing. Like at my job, I have my practicum and I also work at the Alcove Center for Grieving Children and Families. And we have 3 LSWs and then we have 2 LCSWs. And they're always getting interviews by MSW students, just asking them, like, what do you do? Can I shadow you for a day? Like, and I'm sure like other agencies will provide that, just because like it could be scary not knowing if you're in the middle. Like, I don't know if I want to go map or clinical. So I definitely recommend that, network and reach out to agencies and see if they allow you to do that, just so you can kind of like get in their shoes. I'm always recommending that, as the intensive weekend representative, just so it can like alleviate some stress for those that don't know what route they want to take.
And I would like to add to that, there's a lot of alum. There's a lot of alum in New Jersey. And when you see the Rutgers alum, if you definitely reach out to an alum and say you would like to shadow or do an informational interview with them about their role and position, I'm so sure the alum will give you time and they will definitely have a conversation with you. You would be amazed how many Rutgers social work alum that are in the tri-state area and beyond.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. I wanted to add, um, this is something that I've been doing recently, especially with the community organizing that I've been involved with. And because of my memory, I actually have an Excel sheet that has all of my networks, like all of the people, their names, their contact information, how I met them, last time I met with them. I'm updating it constantly. And I also have like fun facts, like, so next time I'll review it before an event. So I'll remember, oh, next time I see so and so, I got to make sure to ask them how their college transition went for their child, for example, right? So it can be all the things that really is helpful for you all to remember. Also, their position, what agency they work at, what type of work they do. That helps me stay organized. And yeah, I think that's helpful too, especially if you start broadening your network to the point of like, that suppresses my memory, for example.
Great points. There's a hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello. I had a question. So I am fully online, and so when it comes to connecting, for me, I find that a little bit difficult. I'm doing my practicum at the child study where I'm working. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I'm a teacher there, and I'm working at the child study. But now I'm kind of left taking a different angle. I want to do clinical, but I realized I don't want to do it in a school. Like, I don't want to do child study. I know that the option is like, next year when I choose my practicum, I could do like more of a clinical setting, but I'm struggling with building relationships with the right people because I don't want to say the wrong setting, but I'm in a different setting than where I want to be. So how do I reach out? Who am I supposed to look for? Um, should I connect with people within Rutgers? Should I be reaching out in hospitals? I don't really know. So if you have any advice, maybe how I could go about it that way.
Mhm. I would definitely say spend some time with your advisor so that your advisor knows what it is that you're looking for. They can have some really good resources because I know that Christine, Dr. Chapea, she has built some community.
Yeah.
Um, and so reaching out to her would be good as well,
Okay.
because she's built community spaces where students can come together and she can have some additional resources. But definitely talk to your advisor so they can really help you flesh out some of the areas that you want to network and connect with folks and
Okay.
get some guidance around that. Because it might be setting based, people based,
Hmm.
position based, or it might be all of the above, and it can maybe help you out with that. And then also look out too for I know the Graduate Student Association. I think some Shantae, you could talk about the panels. I don't want to. I know
Yes.
you're the.
Yeah. Some things that come. I was going to say the same thing. One about the support group that the 100% online students have. The schedule went out. I know they maybe have two more meetings coming up for the semester. There's a
Okay.
support coach. And then speaking with your advisor, and also when it's time to do your planning for your second practicum, you have that one-on-one support with the coordinator to discuss, how your previous practicum went and your interest about
Okay.
where you want to go next.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
What about those
Um,
future panel discussions that's going to come from the Graduate Student Association?
Oh yes, that is something that they are working on to have some panels about career paths and support as well. So in the coming weeks, there'll be some calendars with those events and when they'll be.
Perfect. So I'm going to just pop in here because one of the things that you said is that you're a current teacher and working toward your MSW. And I have it's actually somebody who's a client in my practice who was a first grade teacher, went back, got an MSW. She absolutely hates doing child study team and that kind of thing. She learned how to do family work. She did one of the family institutes after her MSW. She does family work as a kind of her clinical job, and she also works in schools with crisis intervention. And she
Yeah, so
loves it.
that's more what I'm looking for to like that angle because I chose to work with the I think it's CHAP. So I do want to do children, but I realized just child study itself is
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
it's not
Pop
it's
in, pop out,
yeah,
right?
pop
Yep.
in, pop out. There's no relationships,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
so it's harder. Like it's just kind of not what the angle that I want to go through.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's really doable.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder too, I don't know, I don't want you to disclose any personal information. So I don't know where you're at, but I wonder school-based programs, have you ever heard of that? Because the school-based programs provide a lot in a school setting where you're able to do a lot of that clinical work there with individuals, groups, and even sometimes the families, but I'm not sure. But you should talk to your advisor, excuse me, about that and mention the school-based programs possibly
Okay,
in your
sounds good.
area. Hmm.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
I also wanted to drop a little plug for the graduate assistantships. So in September, in that time frame, you should be getting a notice about graduate assistantships that are available. I would definitely encourage you to look through them and see if there's any that resonate with what you're passionate about, and then to apply to those, even if it's just kind of peripherally related. I think it's worth applying to, and then that's a way to connect with some of the faculty that's doing the research, and they're connected as well, so that's another opportunity to connect.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
So any final thoughts or questions?
Okay, so are we I'll share. I'm seeing a comment. Yeah, go Trojans. So, for example, if you want to reach out to a USC alumni, you could reach out to me. But if not a USC alumni, you're still welcome to reach out to me. I don't, I'm all inclusive.
I also want to share. So I'm the current alumni. I'm the current president of the Alumni Council, and we are building up our alumni network on the West Coast. So we have about 362 alumni just in California. And so we have done we did an inaugural dinner on the West Coast. We also are doing a virtual, we call it the gathering on the West Coast. And so connecting folks together because they miss their Jersey roots. And and so it's such a great group. They're supporting one another, helping one another out, helping a newly graduate study for her test, helping with job opportunities. Also, to one of our we have an alumni conversation series, and there were so many West Coast in that alumni supporting her because she was a West Coast alum who was presenting, and so really really robust, and so that network is really coming together well. So you'll be in good company.
Awesome. All righty. If that is it and all the questions, want to thank you guys for coming to this session. Oh, one more thing. How can I find out more about that network, Dr. Hubbard?
Well, you can email the alumni, and so and then talk with your advisor, or you can email me directly um because we definitely put out information.
Awesome. Again, thank
what
you
you
all for
just said.
coming this evening. That information will be in the chat. Want to thank our faculty again for coming out and sharing about clinical and MAP. You will get emails from Student Affairs. You can also reach out to advisors if you have any additional questions about this. But again, we want to thank you for coming out this evening and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you so much.